Okay, in this episode, we're going to try something a little bit different, and we're going to talk about military travel hacking, which is one of Jamie and mine. Gotta start that over.
Mine.
Mine.
I want to
All
say
right,
mine
we'll
and
just roll.
Jamie's, but I don't think that's right either.
Mine
I
and
don't know.
Jamie's. Jamie and me's.
We're here to talk money,
Uh,
not grammar. Let's keep going.
All right. So we're going to talk about military travel hacking. So, Jamie, in your words, what's the deal?
So, military travel hacking, I would summarize as taking advantage of unique military benefits to earn free or very cheaply discounted benefits like hotel rooms, cheap flights, upgrades, and things like that that are at a huge advantage for military members because we get some of the cards free, basically.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good definition. So I think I would break it up into travel hacking, right, which is pretty well known online. I would say if you're aware of like credit cards and stuff, and that's just use in my own words, it would be using points and miles to get free vacations or free flights, free hotel rooms, free resorts, and then also a lot of other benefits too, like sometimes free food, free Uber, and essentially you're just using the benefits of credit cards and maximizing them as best you can. And what military service members, just like you said, the biggest card companies out there like Chase, American Express, Citi, and U.S. Bank, and I think that's it for the
I think it's it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get all of their premium cards for free and not pay any annual fee, and that's true for both active duty military, Guard and Reserve on Title 10. I got a data point recently that says Title 32 doesn't count because it's not federal. So I think it's Title 10 Guard and Reserve, and then military spouses as well. So a dependent military spouse, civilian, they don't have to be active duty themselves, but they have to be in this database, and we'll talk about how to get there.
Yeah. So we both have a handful of credit cards, we'll say, and you can pile up the points for travel, hotels, things like that. Why do the banks give free annual or waive the annual fee for military? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so it's not very well advertised. I mean, you can, like, obviously on my site, I've been talking about this for 10 years on militarymoneymanual.com. And I actually have a course, militarymoneymanual.com/UMC3, Ultimate Military Credit Cards course. That's the UMC3, Uniform Mike Charlie 3. And in that course, I talk about all the stuff that we're going to talk about in this FAQ. But the reason that they waive the annual fees is thanks to two laws. One of them, the SCRA, Service Member Civil Relief Act, and the other one is the MLA, Military Lending Act. And the SCRA was passed, I think the first one was passed in 2003, but it kind of comes from like a long history of like the Civil War, World War I, World War II. And when called to active duty, Congress doesn't want military service members to have to worry so much about old debts or old loans they used to have. So what they did is they capped the interest rate at 6% for any debt acquired before entering active duty service. And the MLA, the Military Lending Act, kind of closed the gap because what companies were able to do was charge higher than 6% to active duty troops, right? Through like payday loans, through credit cards, through a bunch of through auto loans, right? That were much higher interest rate, and the laws were passed to protect service members from exorbitant interest rates. But what happened was Chase and American Express, it must be their lawyers reviewed these laws and said, depending on how you read the laws, annual fees can be included in calculating the military annual percentage rate, or MAPR, and that's capped at 36% for military service members and their dependents under the MLA. And then if you open up the card before you enter active duty, they apply the SCRA benefits, and so your interest rate is capped below 6%. And if annual fees are included in that, and you have, let's say, a $500 annual fee, if you only charge, we'll say, $1,000 for the car in a year, Well, then a $500 annual fee is like a 50% military annual percentage rate, MAPR. And so the banks and credit card companies said, we don't want to deal with this. And so we'll just waive all the annual fees for military service members.
Yeah, and I think don't feel too bad for Chase and Amex specifically. They're kind of the two bigger ones. They're still making billions and billions of dollars off people, and one of the things we want to avoid doing is paying them in interest, right? So one of the questions you get sometimes is, "What about credit card debt? How do I incorporate this but avoid credit card debt?"
Yeah. So I was, when I was first getting into the financial independence and learning about how to manage my military paycheck, one of the first people I read was Dave Ramsey, and he's a huge anti credit card guy. And one of his things was always, do you think millionaires are using credit cards? No, they pay cash for everything. Well, now that my income has increased, I realize that a lot of millionaires use credit cards. They don't use cash for anything. But the what so his big thing was no credit cards, not once, not ever. And I was of the opinion that, well, you could have one, and then as long as you pay it off, then you should be fine. Well, what I didn't realize when I was opening up my first credit card was you have so if you do a charge on the first day of your billing cycle, right? Well, 30 days later, your bill will close, and then the bill won't be due till days after that. So that's how people get in trouble, right? Is they spend
Yep.
money 58 days ago, and then they don't have to pay it off until 58 days, or they buy something and they have to pay it off 58 days later. But if as soon as you get the statement, you pay off the bill in full, you have the cash sitting in your checking account ready to go. And one of the systems I set up early on was anytime I made a credit card, I bought something on a credit card, I would move it from my kind of savings account to my spending account. And that way I always had enough there to cover it. And if you just treat them like a debit card where you pay them off immediately and in full, and you never carry a balance, then you won't be charged any credit card debt.
Yeah, so we really, really want to emphasize don't carry a balance. You can even pay off your card early before the statement closes, or
Yep.
as soon as you get your statement, you don't have to wait to the due date. Spencer mentioned auto pay and stuff like that is very beneficial as well, but don't let travel hacking lure you into paying a bunch of money in interest on a credit card because you'll get behind real, real quick. Um, Okay, the next kind of FAQ that kind of falls under this is how can I be sure that my fees will be waived? Does it apply to everyone? You mentioned military members and spouses. How do I know if it's going to work for us?
Yep. So the easiest way to, before you open up any cards, I encourage everyone to check their status and their spouse's status in the MLA, that's Mike Lima Alpha, MLA database. So if you just Google MLA database, the URL is quite long. Actually, let me just look it up right now. It's mla.dmdc.osd.mil. But if you Google MLA database and you kind of skip over the, there's the MLA citation format that we had to use in college, skip over the links for that. And if you look for MLA DOD database, it should pop right up. And what you're going to be able to do on there is create an account and then run your social security number against the database. And if you're on active duty, then it should say that you are eligible for MLA benefits. And then run your spouse's information as well. And as long as they're properly loaded in DEERS with a social security number, then they should pop positive as well. And it should say eligible for MLA benefits. And once you see that, then you're cleared hot. You can go apply for these cards, and the credit card companies will run when you apply for the credit card, they're going to run your social security number against the database. And as long as it's a positive match on the day that you apply, that's really key. So if you're on active duty orders only for 30 days, make sure that you're in the database, and then make sure you apply while you're in the database on active duty orders. That's especially relevant for Guard and Reserve. But once it's a positive match, then your fees are waived, and they'll stay waived as long as you're on active duty.
So you mentioned on the day that you apply, does that mean like a new commissionee out of the military academy, Air Force Academy, Naval Academy, they can't do it day one of graduation? They have to wait, double check and make sure they are on active duty orders in the MLA database, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I know the way that American Express used to interpret the rules, all the academy cadets were eligible for SCRA benefits and could get the cards fee waived. I think they've since changed that. But the easiest way to figure out if you're going to get your fees waived or not is just check the MLA database. So I know I've heard of a lot of ROTC, a lot of academy kids who graduate and they apply for a card their first day after graduation. Because they're commissioned, right? They're ready to go. Well, not so fast. Your enter to active duty date, might be delayed a little bit. The paperwork has some time to take up. The database has to be updated. Usually, I mean, you can check the database as much as you want, but I would wait 30 days after you commission or enlist and you've started receiving military paychecks. Wait 30 days after you get your first military paycheck, ping the database, see if you're in there. And if you are in there, then you're ready to go. You can apply for the cards and get the fees waived. If you're not in there, just wait a little bit longer, another 30 days or so, check the database again, and then you should be ready to go.
So you mentioned a little earlier that they recently kind of changed their interpretation, SCRA versus MLA. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of transparent to us in some ways of whether they waive our fees under one rule or the other. But we have seen questions where people say, oh, no, I got denied under SCRA. They say you're not eligible for SCRA because I'm already in the military and I'm trying to open this card. Well, then all you got to do is apply under MLA and then it should work. So don't let that kind of mix you up either, because their old rules were kind of more SCRA based. New rules are kind of more MLA based, right?
Yeah. And again, if you Google like Amex SCRA denial, I've got a whole page on there that explains the new system versus the old system and what you need to do. But essentially, it should be completely transparent to you. As long as you're already in the MLA database, you don't have to apply for anything. And the way that you can check to see if MLA was applied to your account is on your Amex, statement of benefits, I believe it's called, but it's, one of those documents that you get in the mail or you get over email and you're like, this is just legal gobbledygook. At the bottom, it should say you have been identified as a covered borrower under the Military Lending Act. If you have that statement on your documents, then they know you're in the military. They've applied to MLA. You're not going to get the annual fee waived. Even if you get, so for instance, like when Amex waived their annual fee, a lot of us got emails saying, hey, the fee's going up. And they even sent us paperwork saying the fee's going up. But at the bottom of it, it still said, hey, you're covered. So don't worry about it. Same thing with Chase. Chase will actually, usually, if you apply for a Chase card, they physically mail a letter that says, hey, you've been identified as a covered borrower under MLA. Your fees are waived. And then a couple days later, your card shows up.
Yeah, the last time we actually opened up our last two cards were Chase cards for my wife, and we got that letter from Chase saying that MLA was applied for her before we even got the card.
Yeah, that's a really nice benefit that Chase does, so that you don't have to worry about it. As soon as you get the card, the fees are already waived.
Yeah. So we talked about some banks. They don't all interpret the rules the same. So we talked already about Amex, Chase, Citibank, and US Bank are kind of the big ones. One quick note with Citibank is there's a email kind of template Spencer has on the website. You email Citi with some information in a canned statement to get MLA applied for Citi. Chase has been automatic. For my personal experience with Amex, I've never had an issue with it, but it's a very easy way to request MLA benefits. Citibank takes the most work in my experience, and it was literally sending one email and that was it. So pretty easy and straightforward. Another question some people ask is about your credit score. So we have a bunch of cards open. Sometimes we open them, sometimes in rapid succession or back to back. Is it going to make me look like I'm broke by having a bunch of credit cards open?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that the credit score is looking at, right, is on-time payments, length of accounts, how old they are, the age of accounts, and the debt to income ratio, and then the debt utilization rate. So for instance, if you have, like I do, 29 credit cards open, and I have over $170,000 of access to credit through all those cards, but I pay my bill in full every month. And so, sometimes the statement closes and I'll have like $1,000 on it or whatever. Well, I'm using less than 1% of my total credit. And so my credit score is great. I think mine's over 820. My wife's is 830. And we both have dozens of cards open. On-time payments is another big thing. And then the age of the account. So whatever card you open first, you're going to want to keep that open essentially forever. So it's really important, I think, to open up a no annual fee card. So you're never tempted to close it, even when you get out of the military, right? And if the credit card company notices that you're out of the military and starts charging you the annual fee, if you've opened up like a Chase Freedom or a like a Navy Federal or USAA credit card that doesn't have an annual fee, and you just, even if you don't use it, just put it in a sock drawer, maybe put like one transaction a year on it just to keep it going. But if you just kind of set that aside, and then that ages your account, right? It provides, it kind of anchors your account as well. So I have a card that I opened up in college that I've never closed. And so that's, what, 15 years now of credit history that I have. And as long as I don't close that account, it also, even if I open up more accounts today, well, the average age of my accounts is still going to be, 7, 6, because I have 7 or 6 years because I have that account that's 15 years old.
Yeah, that's really good. All right, time for one more?
Yeah, let's do one more.
Okay. Do miles and points have expiration dates?
Yeah, so some of them do. And a lot of them, if you close the card and you still have points on it, then you're going to lose the points. But for, let's say, American Express, right? As long as you have one American Express card, either a platinum, a gold, or a green, then you can close all the other ones and you can move all the points, and you still keep your account open. Same thing with Chase, right? So they have their ultimate rewards points. As long as you have one Chase card that takes ultimate reward points, you can move all the points of that card and not lose your points. Because the cards are annual fee waived, usually there's not a lot of reason to close accounts, but you can usually keep your points and miles going. And even if so, like, the big travel pause during COVID, a lot of the companies just kept extending when their points expired. And usually you have, years and years until you have to worry about them expiring. But if you're getting close to it, let's see, I think, do Southwest points expire? I can't actually remember.
I feel like their ads say they don't, but I think it's as long as you're accruing or using, they don't expire for a lot of companies, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. So I know, like, let's say for a while there, I'm pretty sure American Airlines had points that expired, and I had 10,000 points there, or 10,000 miles. And all I had to do was do one transaction on my American Express card. It added a couple more points, and then that shows account activity. And now the points are extended for 24 months. So there's really easy ways to keep them going. And then the other thing that factors into this too is you shouldn't really be saving points. Points are there to be spent. It's not like cash. It's not like money where you can buy something and invest it. Now, maybe you need to save up some points, right? So right now I have a goal to save 1 million American Express points. And what am I going to do with those? No idea. Right.
Take a picture of the page.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Take a picture of the page when I hit 1 million. But let's say we're in more normal times. Well, I can get a round trip ticket on All Nippon Airways, one of the best airlines in Japan, around the world for, I think it's like 300,000 Amex points. So me and my wife, for 600,000 Amex points, could go on a round the world trip and then use the other 400,000 left over for some hotels. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of things that you can do with the points, and really they're there to be spent. And the nice thing about, if you do spend the points on travel and then you're not spending your own hard-earned cash, is now you can take that cash and you can invest it. And so, depending on how much you earn from travel hacking, you might be able to get to the point where you're fully funding a Roth IRA, $6,000 of travel that, you and me have definitely, over the last year, have definitely earned over $6,000 of travel
sure.
from our cards. Yeah,
for sure. Maybe we should do that next time. How much we've earned.
Yeah. But yes, that's a full Roth IRA in 2021. That's a full Roth IRA contribution right there for yourself or your spouse.
All right. So that was a lot of the FAQs. I know we have more we'll try to cover again next time. If people have questions, you mentioned the course, the UMC3 course. Do you mind mentioning that one more time, where they can find that?
Yep, that's militarymoneymanual.com. You just go to the homepage and there should be a link there, a little pop-up. You just put in your email address and I'll send you the course for 100% free. And then militarymoneymanual.com/UMC3 if you want to directly access it. And if you have any questions, I'm available essentially 24/7. I might not respond that quickly, but send me an email, info at militarymoneymanual.com. And I have a pretty good track record of responding to every single email I receive. So shoot me an email, ask me your questions, and we'll see if we can address it in the next episode.